I won't say I'm sympathetic because I don't do sympathy, it's a waste of time, but I am empathetic. Stop laughing.
How often do you play?
As often as possible. When we had the first lockdown this year, that was the longest I had gone in 40 years without playing, and I was climbing the walls. It was horrendous. I play professionally and I play lifestyle as often as I can, at least once a week. Because if I don't play, as my ex used to say, "For God's sake, woman, go and find someone to beat, you're driving me nuts." People have role play punishments, which I term as play, because it's a reason to play. A lot of people need a reason to be spanked or caned because it doesn't make sense otherwise. In a role play, you can do a punishment scenario, which is the same sort of things I would say to someone in a real punishment, except they can be warmed up first. We can use various different implements so that while it's a hard caning, they're getting warmed up first. A lot of people have to have a reason to get spanked or caned or whatever. There's always something you can come up with to be punished for, whether it was speeding and getting 6 points on your license, you stole something from the local newsagent, constantly late, lazy, skiving off. I like to have fun when I'm playing, but my way of having fun is to trip people up, to mess with their heads a bit, tie them in knots, not rope knots. I call it play unless it's an actual, genuine, real life punishment or a judicial scenario. Something that really, really irritates me is when you get these people saying, "I can't wait till my next punishment." Wasn't much of a punishment then, was it? Anyone who has a genuine punishment will dread it, because it means they've let themselves down, they've let their disciplinarian or dominant down. Who wants to disappoint the person who cares for them? If it's a real punishment, then it's a completely different scenario and mindset. To me, a real punishment would be discussed beforehand. They would be summoned, they would arrive. It would be a very cold and clinical. It's genuine. They've let me down, they've let themselves down, and now they must pay the price so that the line can be drawn under and everyone can move on with a clean slate. Punishment is from cold, normally a cold caning, but if people can't have cane marks, then I've been known to use slippers, Canadian reformatory straps. It's a minimum of 24 strokes from cold, and they're very, very hard.
When you're punishing, what are you getting out of that?
When I look at someone at the end of the session and they're blissed, they're spaced out on my bench, and I think, I did that, I got them there. That's my biggest buzz, because I've helped them to get where they needed to be.
It sounds like there's a lot of compassion in what you do.
Some people would disagree, but yes, I won't say I'm sympathetic because I don't do sympathy, it's a waste of time, but I am empathetic. Stop laughing. They need to go through the process to get the catharsis, the stress relief, the weight of the world lifting off their shoulders, and that's where someone like I come in, because I take control. I give them the relief of responsibility from their everyday life, and then when we've finished, I hand back control and they can take responsibility again. But everybody needs that break every now and then. It's very important to me that I can get into their head and work out what they need. It's not all about the play. The play is a very small part. If I don't get their head into the right place, it's not going to work no matter what I do.
Why do you think so many people are drawn towards situations where they're being punished or losing control
We have so many responsibilities in our everyday lives. Life is really high pressured for a lot of people these days, regardless of what sort of job they've got, whether they work at all. The best way to get stress relief, to me, is to give up control. So someone like me, I take responsibility for them. They get to relax. They don't have to think about anything because they haven't any decisions to make. I'm making them. It's a two-way symbiotic relationship. Both give, both take, both get where we need to be. Chap came to see me. He was crippled with guilt. 30 or 35 years earlier, when he was 15, his friend's mum and dad went away on holiday. Mobile phones had just come out and they cost an absolute fortune to ring from a landline. He ran up a £500 phone bill. Guess what sort of numbers he was calling? When the parents arrived home and got the bill, they went ballistic at their son. And he said, but I didn't do it. He honestly hadn't. His friend had. The chap didn't admit it. His friend was punished severely, physically and in other ways. He carried that guilt because he was brought up nicely. He had good ethics and morals. He was a decent guy. And it played on his mind so much that he'd let his friend be punished, hadn't taken responsibility for his actions. He came to me and said, it's eating me up. It messed with his self-esteem, his confidence, his relationships. He didn't feel he was worthy because he'd acted so despicably. We talked about it all. We then did a role play where I played his friend's mum. Eventually I sort of turned things round on him, tripped him up, and he admitted it. And I explained to him that he had to make atonement and he had to pay the price, which he did. And it hurt, but we were having a cup of tea and a chat after, as I usually do. And I could see the weight coming off his shoulders because he'd actually finally done what he was supposed to do. He took responsibility for his actions and he paid the price. He still sees me now, but we don't do punishments anymore because he's paid the price. So now we have play sessions. They may have a punishment scenario in some of them, but it's not an actual punishment.
How does it feel pretending to be someone else?
I don't really. I'm just me. I will take on some roles, but I'm still inherently me. Just because someone calls me auntie instead of headmistress or mum or, their boss, it's still me. They're all going to get walloped, so it's, the same ending as well. I play with lifestylers for lots of different reasons. If I go to an event or a club, if I used to go to an event or a club, I'll play with anyone who asks me. I will not ask them to play simply because I don't want anyone to feel that they have to play. If the chemistry is right and we hit it off, then we might then go on to develop a more lifestyle understanding. I'll say relationship, but that doesn't mean necessarily romantic. I don't do romance. I don't want to be the same as everyone else. I don't want to do the same things as everyone else. So the taboo side of it is highly appealing to me.
How do you continuously view this as taboo when it's such a big part of your life?
Because it's not mainstream. It's not something that everybody does. It's something that I choose to do. It's edgy. It's potentially dangerous. It's not something that everybody approves of.
If people would like to know a bit more about you, how can they find out more?
I've got a new website I'm working on, which is Quintessential Discipline. They can find me on Twitter Real Lady Pandora. They can find me on FetLife, Lady Pandora CP, or they can email me, ladypandoracp@outlook.com. Can't remember what the question was. Neither can you.